Join us for the all-new generation of the BMW 3 Series, today as a 330e. Let's go! See here the bigger front grille, then adaptive air intake, so the double kidney will only open on demand. Headlamps come standard as LED, optional adaptive LED and optional also with the laser function. Then you also have those blue accentuations like we have in here. Yeah, I mean, you have more high beam than, or even stronger, but of course it's a, really cost-worthy option. Then in lower end, you can see here quite strong lower bumper. Again, fits very well also to the color. And overall a very sporty front, also with those accentuations on the hood. And the thing is here, with the plug-in hybrid version, it does look the very same as all other versions. You can pick any trim for that one. That's also the new strategy. So the plug-in hybrid version does not look differently. 4.70 m, 15'4" or 185 inches is the length of the new 3 Series. 8.5 centimeters longer, and also in the front and the rear it's a little bit wider, so bigger stance on the road. Not too much different though. 16 to 19 inch wheels are available. Those ones here are 18 inch. This one here, the classic sedan shape. The plug-in hybrid will also be available for the two-ring one later. And then this classic design element, the Hofmeister Kink or Knick as we say in Germany, derived from older BMW coupes. In the rear you can see the new design element are those horizontally drawn tail lamps, and that also stretches the width. 2 centimeters wider the track in this new generation. In the front it was 4 centimeters wider even, and 25% stiffer is the whole chassis, so that guarantees a little bit more sportiness, and we have already experienced that on the racetrack. That was quite well done. Then the voluminous rear here for the M Sport model, and those are real exhaust pipes indeed. Yeah, we hardly find those nowadays. And let me already tell you something about the suspensions. There is a new hydraulic cushion damper available. Well, it's standard now for the 3 Series. Optional, you can get an M Sport suspension that is stiff. We tested that one already in the 330i. That was actually quite rough from the ride. And then optional, the adaptive dampers, which are probably way to go. So either stick with the base or the adaptive dampers if you want more comfort. We test the adaptive dampers here today. So, what about engines for the 3 Series? There's a 2-liter 4-cylinder petrol with either with 184 or 258 horsepower. Then there's the M340i 3-liter 6-cylinder, 374 horsepower. Diesel side, a 2-liter 4-cylinder diesel 150 or 190. 3-liter 6-cylinder diesel 265, and then the stronger versions, optional Xdrive overdrive, or the strongest, always with Xdrive overdrive. And this one here today, the plug-in hybrid version, which is somehow based on the 320i, so to say, horsepower-wise from a petrol, 184 petrol horsepower, but then overall system output 252, or a peak horsepower output of 292. About 10 seconds this boost lasts. Very interesting. So 2-liter 4-cylinder petrol engine plus the electric drive from this 12 kilowatt hour battery, and the pure electric range supposed to be 60 kilometers officially, but the realistic figure is usually then a little bit lower. We calculate about 50 kilometers, a little bit less probably. We'll also test it out again later. And interesting is that pure electric, you can even drive 140 kilometers on the motorway, for example. And in the hybrid mode, you can drive 110 kilometers pure electric in the mode. Yeah, I mean, the difference is in the hybrid mode, it switches, a little bit between the petrol and the electric drive. In the pure electric, you say you just want to drive pure electric. So, yeah, we'll see how that one plays out. It, of course, makes sense if you recharge frequently, or maybe if you commute electrically during the week, and then on the weekend or so you just use the petrol engine for a longer term. And there are new subsidiaries. For example, in Germany you pay less taxes for a company car that you also use privately, so that could also boost those sales. And price-wise, it's also, it's more expensive than the normal petrol engine, which would be comparable horsepower output, and a little bit more expensive than the diesel. but actually after, you know, some subventions from the government and so on, it can be cheaper than a diesel. Seating position itself, the seat form is actually quite comfortable, mid-sized vehicle. And 1.86 or 6'1", still leaves plenty of headroom. Base would be 5.7 inch, small screen in the middle and analog right and left. This one here, 12.3 inch full digital instruments. And when we light it up, you can see that the RPMs go counterclockwise. In this case, it's the e-boost, so it's not the real engine RPMs. Then you can see how much e-boost you get, and also the recharging for the recuperation here for the 330e right there, and on the left side the normal speed. In the middle part, then you can have some space for the GPS. That's also the counterclockwise reason. So now this infotainment screen, 8.8 inch is the standard. This one optional 10.25 inch with the newest layout. This one here is the GPS. Good reaction, and I like the GPS of BMW at the moment best because it has the best, you know, direction routing somehow. Never failed to, you know, hit anything. You can use the touchscreen, but you also can use the lower pad to browse inside those, you know, those menus here. That's pretty interesting. You can also have a sport display here for the 330e, and via apps you can also connect your phone to Apple CarPlay wirelessly. Android Auto, however, is not available. You know, the new 3 Series is longer in this new generation, and that also increases the legroom. So actually no problem then for me to sit here. The seat should be a little bit higher, that you can put my seat under the seat a little bit better. Headroom wise, here also in the sedan is actually no problem with my size, so still some headroom left. The touring, of course, continues as for the roofline, so you have even more headroom. But this one here works just fine. So what about the trunk? Yeah, this is somewhat limited. 480 liters with a normal 3 Series sedan, 375 liters with this one because it's not as high as the other one. But you then have an even loading sill here. That's the somewhat advantage. But you can see you're somewhat limited right here because they have actually put the normal fuel tank underneath here, which is usually lower, and lower here then is the battery. So again, normal 3 Series, the fuel tank is right underneath here, but lower. And here, first your fuel tank, and then even lower the battery. Very interesting. And then here, this one, you can actually, there's a mechanism, and put it down, and then you can actually put some higher stuff in here. Let's see, for example, a backpack that then also fits upright in here. So that's the possibility you have. So somewhat limited, yeah, but I don't know. I mean, for lower suitcase, that's still okay somewhat. And then you can also put that up again. Welcome to Thomas's Driving Lounge here with the BMW 3 Series and the 330e. And the cool thing is, of course, with the hybrid, I'm in the all-electric mode. I can drive totally silently, and I can even drive it faster, all electric, and that's not too often with the hybrid models, so that it really goes to 140 kilometers pure electric. That's pretty cool. So at the moment, driving pure electric and 100 kilometers, and yeah, I mean, from the outside at about 30-40 kilometers, electric cars are not more silent than the other ones because it's about the sound of the tires. But from the inside, definitely when you don't have the engine noise, electric vehicles are also more silent at higher speeds, so to say. At some point, of course, you can say, yeah, maybe you hear the wind noise more if the engine sound doesn't like overlay or something. Yeah, you can argue, for both of that, surely. So when you go off the throttle, you see the charge meter then in this digital instrument. And of course, when you're out on the brakes, it recuperates even more. Just when the real brakes are being needed, when you really hammer the brakes, then, the real brakes are also being applied. Does it make sense to drive all electric first? It depends. If you have a commuting way and want to use all of this electric energy first, and you don't have too much to ride, yeah, probably then. Other than that, it can also make sense to go in the hybrid mode. So then the car decides itself. For example, when you are then at lower speeds, or you hardly do anything with the throttle, it stays in this electric mode. And when you hammer the throttle a little bit more, the combustion engine goes on. It also works, by the way, in the pure electric mode. There's like a resistance in the throttle, and when you floor it out, then you also have the combustion engine drive for like emergency situations where you say, oh, I need to accelerate now very fastly. That, you know, might make sense. Then you want to have the combustion engine power also when flooring it out. There's also the assisted driving and the distance control, so you can switch from that. Assisted driving, the highest trim of that also the steering wheel is being controlled, so to say. You have to keep your hands on the steering wheel, so it's not level 3 autonomous driving, but still, you know, the car keeps it in lane. See it here. Yeah, that worked very well. Noise insulation is really good with the all-new generation of the 3 Series, so pretty silent in here, good ride. And well, sometimes you maybe just want to go for distance control because you want to steer everything on your own, and this car feels very agile, this stiffness of this new generation. So here, when I, for example, go out of the small village and want to accelerate on the countryside road again, here I accelerate, and then, yeah, after a while the combustion engine sets in, but the transition is really nicely done. Then there's also this orange symbol for the combustion engine. Yeah, really it's one of the PHEVs here where the transition between both is really nicely done. Typical situation here also where with the combustion engine this energy would have been lost from the acceleration. Now there was someone turning in on the left, and we could gain back some energy from that. So that's also an interesting experience as for that. Well, what about the effective consumption? That's of course a good question. It always depends on how much and how often you recharge. But then does it also make sense when the battery is depleted? That also depends on the topography, the profile. When you, for example, go downhill, you can use more recuperating then again. And you can take some average values, driving information, for example. Yeah, I mean, I was driving mainly electric. This 1 liter of fuel consumption. That's of course really low, but I've depleted more of the battery. So, yeah, that always depends. What is quite cool, this one has an X works value, so that really shows, like, from when the car was built, all the 3,000 kilometers it has been running, shows about 7.5 liters on 1 kilometer for the fuel, for example, and I'm not sure why it's there now, but I've seen earlier that for the pure electric was about 23 kilowatt hours, something like that on 1 kilometers, and that's also quite typical, so to say. What about acceleration? Interesting is the traction to the Sport ESC, then the manual shifting lever to the left, then also sports mode clicking twice to the Xtraboost, then we have the power of combustion engine plus electric drive, and we can use even the launch control. And that's 100. So in the sports mode, here those low degree areas are loose or looser, and then it gets stiffer on the outside. So it's interesting. What I criticize with the steering input, you feel more with the sports mode than you would do with the normal, so old Porsche as well, than you would do with the normal mode. That's interesting. And now to the conclusion for today with the new BMW 3 Series S330e, the new plug-in hybrid. Well, exterior-wise, it's the very same as a normal 3 Series sedan, so they didn't do any changes there. Here today as the M Sport with a very sporty touch, and indeed, it also gives you a sporty boost, especially in this Xtraboost. And then you also have a quite sporty car indeed. But even more to enjoy is definitely this electric drive, so you can use it quite often, and also the increased range now if you compare it to the predecessor model, that works pretty well. And even if you're just in the pure electric mode, you have a very good boost, very good drive just off the battery, and that's a lot of fun. And of course, pretty cool to be even more relaxed in the city surrounding, to be locally emission free and so on. And you can also use it even if you cannot recharge every day. It will be useful somewhere from the recuperation, for example. But of course, makes most sense when you have some charging possibility to make it, most of the time pure electric. So it was a very interesting drive. If you're now really keen on technology and so on, you will definitely enjoy it. Interior-wise, they really have stepped up the game as for the build quality. So yeah, among leading in the segment now together with the Audi. And so very well to control. Also about the infotainment system. Yeah, to set up the wireless CarPlay once is a little bit complicated, but then after that it's pretty easy solution, definitely. And they were among the first to introduce that. The other ones are keeping now up with introducing that, but still no Android Auto here for the BMWs. Also reasonable space inside. Of course, there's a limitation here with the PHEV, with the trunk that's not as high, but you can somehow live with that. For example, when you put that stage down again for backpacks, or when you don't have too high things to load in. And for the touring, it will be less of the problem when the touring will come as a PHEV. Then you have more height in the trunk anyway. One more important remark to the driving, because it didn't do it in the driving part this time. This one here had the adaptive suspension. It was superb. So it was a little bit stiffer than in the sports mode, for example, but still in all different modes, it was sporty enough that you don't have, too much roll, but it has really superb comfort. So if you have the extra money to spend about that, the adaptive suspension is, a option worthwhile. Yeah, but then about options and price, yeah, that can be a problem. In Germany, for example, the price is about 50k here for the PHEV. Already comes, of course, with some stuff included, but then you can easily pop it up over 70k. Yeah, and then over 70k for a mid-sized vehicle, that is, of course, somewhat critical. At least for the PHEV, if you get some, subventions, then, for example, 3,000 euros less in Germany. And then even more interesting when you have some special taxation stuff, depending on your country, on your market. Then this one here can be very interesting and maybe even cheaper than again on the monthly cost and also the long-term running cost than some of the other models. So what's your take on the new 3 Series in general, and also here on the special PHEV version? I hope you enjoyed this insight here today with us, and please also join us next time and to other BMW 3 Series episodes. We will link them in the video description and in the comments. Please tune into those. Thank you so much.